Are you planning on getting a bearded dragon and don't know if you should get a baby or an adult? I mean, that's a big difference. So, what's up, YouTube? I apologize in advance because my mics are not the problem. It's the receiver. The receiver's having issues. So, I'm either going to have to replace the cord on the receiver or I'm going to replace the receiver. And I'm just now finding this out because I've been switching different mics out to see if it's the mics. It's not the mics, it's the receiver. Now, with that said, out of the way, let's talk about why you should get a baby bearded dragon or an adult bearded dragon. Now, the last video was the differences between males and females. And I also want to address something. People like to fixate on one individual topic in the video and ignore everything else around that topic. And in that video, I said that to prevent females, well, I said to prevent females from, laying in fertile clutches, don't let them get overweight. But then I also said, and it could happen anyways. So I'm just saying there's a way to possibly prevent it, but it could possibly still happen anyways. And people were fixated on the fact that I said you can prevent it, even though I said it could happen anyways, and they can still lay infertile clutches. But that's besides the point. So if I say anything in this video that you disagree with, that's fine. Um, put it in the comments, and I'll address it in whatever video comes next about that topic or about a topic that's similar to it. Because I don't want people to get misleaded. If other people thought the same thing, it is what it is. I did address that it could possibly be prevented by not letting them get overweight. And then I also said, but it could happen anyway. So people were fixated on the first part of that statement and not the second part of that statement. And people were obviously having issues with what I said. So if you hear anything that you disagree with, put it in the comments and I'll address it. Most likely it's something that I already said, but nobody heard because they only heard the first part. So there you go. Now, which do you want? Do you want a baby bearded dragon or do you want an adult bearded dragon? Now, I'm going to start off with the adults because, to be honest, the adults are easier to take care of than baby bearded dragons. Why are they easier to take care of? Because of the fact that they don't eat as much as baby bearded dragons, which means they don't poop as much as baby bearded dragons, which means the cleanup is less than baby bearded dragons. However, everything else, the care is exactly the same. Yes, there's less care because there's less cleanup, there's less feeding, but you still have to get the same enclosures, you still have to get the same lights, you still have to get everything else that is required for a bearded dragon. So the cost of that bearded dragon to get everything is still going to be exactly the same. And to get an adult bearded dragon, typically it's more than getting a baby bearded dragon. Typically, not all the time. Sometimes you get rescues and all of that, and those are usually relatively cheap. Now, let's talk about rescues. So, rescues, typically when you get a rescue, it's an older bearded dragon. The problem with rescues is you don't really know what you're getting and what you're getting yourself into. And I say this with all respect to anyone out there that is trying to rehome their bearded dragons. Most people that are rehoming their bearded dragons are rehoming it for three reasons. One, they no longer have time for it, which means it's probably been neglected for the last few weeks, last few months, however long it's been since they haven't had time for it. You don't want anything that's been neglected that long. I promise you. It could be, as simple as, oh, I haven't been feeding it as much, or it could be as I haven't been replacing the heat bulbs, I haven't been replacing the UVB bulbs, I haven't been feeding it, I haven't been cleaning it. It could be that bad. So you got to be careful with the people say don't have time for it. The second one is it was being cared by a child, and that child no longer wants that bearded dragon. Now that's that could be up in the air because a child could do a magnificent job of taking care of bearded dragon, or a child could have a parent that's helping them take care of that bearded dragon. But do you want to risk it? Because I have seen children treat bearded dragons and all kinds of other reptiles and all kinds of other pets with disrespect. I mean, you can see them manhandle it. You can see them try to, it's like they squeeze it. They do a little bit too much and possibly harm that bearded dragon. Now, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but you just got to know what the possibilities are before you say, yeah, I want to rehome or I want to rescue that bearded dragon. And the third one is the worst one of all, is a bearded dragon that's been in the worst situation ever. Like, it doesn't have the right lighting, it doesn't have the right food source, the right enclosures, all of that. Now you're going to be rescuing this bearded dragon to hope that you can get it back up to health. And yeah, maybe the person wants $100, $150, but you're not taking into consideration those vet bills that you're going to have to be paying because that dragon probably has issues, not including just metabolic bone disease, but all of the other things that could possibly come up with a bearded dragon that's been neglected like that. You could have impaction, that severe impaction, depending on the substrate they've been having. You could have fatty liver disease. You could have so many different things that could potentially happen with a dragon that's been neglected like that, and not in the proper enclosure and lighting and everything. So, also the three things I want to talk about with rescues. Now, to continue with the adults have already been raised. Do you want something that's been raised by someone else and you have no idea what the temperament is? Now, this could go one or two ways. I've had people tell me, hey, this dragon is mean. It doesn't let me grab it, blah, blah, blah. And then if I grab it, I bring it here. I have no issues with it, and it's probably just because the enclosure they were in, or the area they were in, or the scenario they were in was not ideal to that bearded dragon. Maybe there was too much movement and there was too many reflections. Whatever the case may be, that bearded dragon did not like where they was living. So whenever I brought it here with an enclosure that had only one opening side, it made it so much different for that bearded dragon, and essentially caused that bearded dragon to be happy with its new home. And no longer aggressive or no longer mean. The other thing is, what if you get a bearded dragon and the person doesn't disclose everything to you? What if you get one and you're like, oh, this is such a nice bearded dragon and I got it relatively cheap because it's an adult? Great. That doesn't happen all the time, but usually some of my glasses, man, my glasses are dirty. Nobody told me nothing. Nobody told me nothing. But what I was trying to say is that because people can lie, you don't really know what you're getting until you got it, right? So, for example, I have bought adult dragons before. I mean, I've bought adult and baby dragons before, but I've bought adult dragons before, and when I get them, the pictures don't do it justice. Most of the time, pictures don't do it justice. But whenever you're picking up a dragon, it's completely different because you have it there in your hands. But when somebody's shipping you a dragon and you get it, you realize the pictures did not do it justice, and justice in a good way. So essentially, this dragon that I got, I guess the angles the person was taking pictures of, the dragon had a really short body, a really big head, and a really short snout. And most people can, tolerate that. The dragon was healthy per se, but it did not have an ideal body structure, and who knows the cause behind it. Most of the time, when you have messed up body structure like that, it's caused from inbreeding, and you probably don't want anything that was from inbreeding. I promise you that. And you don't want anything that was from any sort of breeding that was negatives. So any unethical breeding or anything like that, you don't want anything from those types of breedings. Most of the time, it's just inbreeding, but some of the times it's just the wrong genetics being paired together could potentially cause long-term issues or future issues because of those pairings. Um, so you got to be careful with adult dragons, and that's essentially all I want to get to with adult dragons. With baby dragons, a lot of the same things apply. The only difference really with baby dragons, they eat a whole lot. Okay, they eat a whole lot. Like I have baby dragons pooping every single day, and yeah, the poops are smaller, but you got to clean them, or else the bacteria develops and then it gets worse. So you got to clean that poop every single day. As soon as you see it, I try to clean up poop as soon as I see it because of the fact that I don't know how long that bacteria has been sitting there. With all of my bearded dragons, I do bare bottom tanks, or I'll try to do tile. I do recommend tile for a lot of people, but I have so many tanks that tile isn't necessary really for me, because I mean, I come in here and I just wipe and I just wipe. And I rather them not have tile in it, because the bearded dragons, when they poop, sometimes there's a little bit of runningness to it, not a whole lot, but just because they might have drank more water or something like that, or may have had some kind of extra juices, I guess, in their stool. Um, Sometimes that goes through the cracks of the tile. So if you don't have them grouted, then essentially that's going to be a problem. So that's just the reason I do bare bottom. But um, with that said, I always clean everything with disinfectant wipes, and you got to make sure you get disinfectant wipes that are either, what's the word I'm looking for? So you got to get disinfectant wipes that are not alcohol based, or you can get that F10 disinfectant that are for veterinary use. If you are going to use alcohol based disinfectant wipes, make sure you get your bearded dragon out, wipe the enclosure or wipe that area, then dry it, and then you can use some water after the fact and try to rub the alcohol off. But obviously, the disinfectant already did its thing, because when it dries, that means it's already killed all the bacteria in there. So you just got to use some water on a paper towel and just go over it again, and you'll get that alcohol off the enclosure. But essentially, that's what I like to do, is just make sure that I clean it as soon as I see it. And with that said, because the baby poops more, that means more cleaning. Because the baby eats more, that means more feeding. So really, that's the only differences there. And also, with the baby, you can raise it up to be the type of dragon that you want it to be. There could be bearded dragons that are never taken outside, and therefore, when you start taking it outside, it has issues. Or I've had babies that I've grown up and done everything that I do with other bearded dragons, and it's just their personality does not like being held. The personality does not like going outside. The personality is just a really, temperamental bearded dragon, and therefore, because of that, there's nothing you can do. There's no way you can raise that bearded dragon to be the way you want it to be, because it's just that way. And not only females usually don't go through that stage of being temperamental. It's usually the males, but I have females that have been aggressive during breeding season. I've had females that have literally mounted other females because of them being aggressive during breeding season. But with all that said, you just got to make sure that regardless if you get an adult or a baby, that you take care of it the way that it's supposed to be taken care of, 100%. Make sure you go 110% into the care of this bearded dragon, because regardless of what people have done in the past with the adult bearded dragon, what you do in the future, from the day you get it all the way to the day it passes away, makes a huge difference. Now, I'm not saying that you can reverse MBD, and I'm not saying you can reverse fatty liver issues or anything like that, but I'm saying that you can potentially give this dragon a way better life than they've had. And the only way you can do that is by giving your care level 110% for that bearded dragon versus the 30, 40, 50% that they had before. Now, I'm not trying to dog on anybody that's rehoming their bearded dragon. Like I said, most people that are rehoming their bearded dragons have a legitimate excuse. Now, the excuse that they could have really could change your reasoning behind getting that bearded dragon. Maybe you are the type of person that likes to rescue them and you want something that's been completely neglected. Or maybe you're the type of person that doesn't want anything that's been neglected and you're looking for someone that's been taking care of it perfectly. They just don't have time for it. So it really just depends. And like I said, people can lie to you. So you just got to make sure you're keeping up with that, because there's not much you can do if somebody lies to you. And there you go. And I guess one more thing I want to add is, if you are not dealing with a reputable breeder, make sure that you're picking up a bearded dragon and paying when you pick it up. Do not pay somebody ahead of time and then schedule something to pick up. That doesn't really work. People have been scammed left and right doing that way. So that's just my, TED talk for the day. Do not pay somebody before you have the bearded dragon in your hand, unless it's somebody that's reputable. Like, you got to make sure talk to them on the phone, do video calls with them, whatever you got to do to, convince yourself that this person's reputable, do it. If you have a breeder out there that says, I don't have time for video calls, or I don't have time to sit here and talk on the phone with you, go find somebody else. There's going to be somebody else that wants that time to be given to somebody that really wants to take care of their animal the right way. So with that said, if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that I put out in the future. As always, peace.